water, fresh water, always helps. Okay, now, this is not very clever of me, is it? Hello? I know it's focusing on my face, but it's not exposing for my face, so I'll just have to turn the camera a little bit. That's better. Welcome to Amateur Hour. Now, watercolour paints again. I'm tending to do a lot of these. I will go over to acrylic soon, but at the moment I'm just on a roll. I'm really enjoying doing the watercolour. And it also helps me that it takes less than an hour, whereas my acrylics are a much longer process. So we'll look at that soon. In the meantime, this is what we're doing today, and that is a vineyard. I don't know if you can see it all that well, but you probably will soon because I'll put a small version of it up in the corner. Might just move that tree a little bit. I'll tell you as I go. And once again, I have a confession to make. It's the second time I'm doing this one because I did a lovely painting of it yesterday. Well, to tell you the truth, it was a little bit average. And but the sound didn't work on the video. So I'm doing it again, and I'm hoping I do a better job at the painting. And at the end of the video, I'll show you that other one. And I'll put them up side by side. So in the meantime, let's start. I'll turn the camera and we'll get going. I'm using the rough arches, 31 by 41 or 12 by 16 inches, and it's a pad. But lo and behold, the pad is lifting. Like it's not sticking down properly. That's really annoying because you actually pay a lot of money for a pad, for the block side of it, where it's padded all the way around, rather than just the pad at the top. Anyway, it's behaving like it's only padded at the top at the moment, which is a bit annoying. So Daniel Smith paints because they're rich and thick and they're so lush to paint with, so I recommend them. Others are fantastic too. Schminky are good. The Graham ones, you know, all good. But that's yeah. What am I going to do? I'm going to show you a bucket of water. There's 2-inch Reeves brushes. I've got a couple of them. They're good. They're fast and they save a lot of time. And I have a couple of different width. Oh, not quite washed properly. A couple of different width. What do you call them? Acrylic brushes. I think I've got links below to these, but you can pick them up anywhere. Just acrylic nylon. They're nylon synthetic brushes. I'll give them a good wash. I'm a little bit slack with brushes. It's supposed to be. And of course, I have the best, most expensive, but worth the money if you can afford it, if you're lucky enough. And that is the Escoda Aquario, or Aquario, size 18, and it's the Joseph Zbukvic collection. I've got 2 of them. There's a larger one and a smaller one. There's a link below for those, directly from Escoda. And the Art Secret, these are Born to Sketch little mops. I've got a whole stack of these. I've bought a couple of packets over time. They come in all different. They you know, you can buy a set anyway. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. And so they're very good. They're cheap. Well, relatively cheap. A whole set costs about $70 Australian. Half that for UK and America. So cheap. And that's all I need to say. Oh, a rigger. Look, try and get a rigger. They're only about $20. So they're long, a good inch long and as thin as you can. And this one's a size 4. This is called Art Spectrum, which I'm pretty sure is an Australian brand. But don't get the fat ones. Get as thin as you can. Just 3 hairs. You only want it for doing the very finest of lines. And whatever, I have other little random brushes around, but nothing to speak of, just things I've collected over time. Down below there is a link to some really good, a set of brushes from Amazon that seem to have a large range, about 20 brushes in there, and they're in a packet, you can roll them up and have a look at those. I think when I looked at those the other day, I thought, wow, this is a pretty good set to get you started, or to add to, if you like me, yeah, brushes get tired after a while. They don't last forever, especially if they're not looked after properly. And they do start to wear out. These things start to go all daggy and they go into little clumps like that. So I think they get paint stuck in there. I think I should be using soap more often than I do. Anyway, that's enough said. I think we should get started. So I'll just turn this around. I only got one camera, that's why if I don't get it right and I fail, I've got to start all over again, which is what happened yesterday. So I have had time to clean my paints a little bit, clean my pans, I mean, from the paints. And if you're used to me rabbiting on, you'll know I'm always using the wrong words. It's something to do with age, sure, although I've always done it. So I'm going to just pop a little bit of water in these pans. It's the nouns. I know the verbs, they're all right, just the nouns. Oops. Sometimes when I do this, if it's already wet, I've got to be careful, but normally it's dry, so I can just drag the brush along fairly quickly. But it is a little bit, it's a little bit, what do you call, wet from yesterday. Going to start with the blue sky and a little bit of the ultramarine blue and this warmer blue, which is cobalt, I think. Cerulean blue, maybe? What's that type of colour? Slightly greenier blue, and that's a pinker blue. So I mix them both together. And then just dry on, I'll just put the brush dry on the dry paper, wet brush on dry paper. Scrabble it around a little bit, scumble it around. Oh God, it's a terrible start. And I'm going to do the same down the bottom here because I want some water, I want some reflections of the same colour to be repeated down here. Now, I've left a few white bits there, and what I will do, using kitchen paper today to dry my brush, just go back in and suck those up, just soften the edge. As you can see from the photograph, it's a very soft cloud, not a cumulus cloud. Same down the bottom. In fact, I'll just thicken that or darken that colour at the top. I just went straight into my paint then. And I'll do the same at the bottom. So notice I've got a little bit of the pinky blue, a little bit of the greeny blue, and now it's beginning to merge. It's all very nice. I shall start with the hill at the background here, and I want to put it right in the middle of the that area where the sky meets the, I'll just run that down a little bit more. I'll start with a touch of green. I'm not quite sure if you can see every time I mix these paints, so I'll try and hold them up. So some little trees on the left side there, going up the hill in the wet on wet sort of feel to the fields at the top. All over colour, without too much detail at this stage. It's going to end up being very dark, so the sooner I darken it, the better. Knowing that it will fade. So I'll just start putting in some lines for the vineyards. Very graphic, they're lovely. Over here. A little bit of red in those trees and on the ground there. And I'll add some yellow to that straight away. So it blooms out, expands. You get interesting colours in there. So while I'm at it, I'm going to add some blue up here as well to those trees and to the top edge of that mountain. And let that fade away into the watery paper. Coming down the hill a little bit there. It's all right. Right, very, very wet in wet, letting it all fly around. Down the bottom here we've got a challenge because we've got a bridge. And the way I'm going to do the bridge is, I've got brown on, I'll just better check to see what colour I have got here. A reddy brown colour. So I'm just going to pop that in because I can. Straight line going across and I'm going to draw in these. If you wanted to pencil this in before you started, I don't blame you, it's quite a good thing to do. But I'm just pretending I'm plain airing. Pop it in like that. That's a hint of a bridge. It's giving me a fine, like a place to start. I'll come back to it and add some interesting colours. But at this stage, just leave it at that. Now I have this beautiful big tree here that I need to start a bit further up the hill. There's a parkland over here. Now I might just have it basically there, and in which case what I'll do is start on the soft background leaves of the tree. If I darken them in, that's fine. I can scrape through them a little bit to get branches going in there. Now this side has to be a little bit lighter, so what I'll do immediately is I'll pick that back out again. You get a lovely textured effect when you draw using a dry brush. Just draw out that area to make that lighter. So the tree, I'm going to make the tree there. Now these other areas down below, I want to keep that those vineyards, that vineyard thing happening. I'll use some bright yellows here and up in that tree there. On this side, yes. Down here, yes. So because I've moved the tree over to the right a little bit, that means I've got more room for these vines in the paddock. So I'll just use the side of the brush, or the flat edge of the brush, to put those in. There's a very dark tree down there. There must be in the shadow. So I'm going dark green. I'll put some blue in there. And they come right down to the bridge. Now the bridge I might just take a bit higher than what I've got it. Right. Behind this tree. Dark, so what I'll try and do is pick out a couple of branches and not go over the top of them. Okay. Got brown on my brush. I'm just going dab, 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 dab. So totally random, and then I'll come back. I'll do a bit more of the blue. So I'm not mixing it in the palette, in the pan area, I'm just getting it on the brush. Because there's a lot of water there, I can add fairly strong paint here. And it's not going to really dye the paper. in a serious way, it's not going to do much. It'll fade out because there's so much water already on that page from the previous washes underneath. So I'm just going to tap in dark colours here that'll make it look like shadows on the left side of that tree. I might even, I'm just thinking, I wonder if I should take the tree above. I might take it up into the sky a little bit. Really emphasise how high it is. Okay, other dark colours coming over here. And I'll keep emphasising these rows of. Now in here I want to do the dark. Okay, load the brush up with some more blue, some more brown, and this is the top paddock up here. Just looking at that paddock there, along there, I'll just put the dark edge. Brush is beginning to lose it. I might come to a smaller brush. I might just wash that one off. When I say lose it, it's separating up and I'm losing control. I'll get a nice big acrylic paintbrush here. The reason I'm using flat ones at the moment is because of these lines. It's a lot of graphic-y, I don't know, lines. Oh my god. I'll have to start just playing music, I think. Ridiculous. Geometry, that's the word. Don't use that very often. Not very often I have this sort of structure. If you're not doing buildings, normally it's just lovely loose. Trees and things. So I think that's one of the reasons. I think one of the reasons I like this particular photograph is the texture of these vines in the distance compared to the looseness of the trees in front of them. Just making up a few extra areas there that aren't really in the photograph. So for a lot of foliage you don't sometimes want to get too green. So I often do a little bit of a brown and put brown where the trees are. Then I'll come back and put a bit of blue in there. Now believe it or not, the brown and blue, they do sort of make a very sort of khaki colour. So they do help with producing what could be green, but it's not as pretty as the blue and yellow combination type of green. So just leaving a few leftover branches here and there on that bunch. And the blue on the left side is definitely what you want, and it adds a lovely texture too because they granulate. Granulation is when two colours don't like mixing together, and so they stay sort of divorced, you could say. They don't gel, and so you end up with dots of blue and dots of brown, and that is so good because it adds a texture and it adds an interest. So that's a little tree there. I'll just put a couple of little lines. I'll put some dark at the background to give it an idea of, looks like a little park, I think. Run sideways lines there. And then right in behind here it gets very dark, so I'll put some really dark area there. And mix it with a bit of brown on the palette. I mean on the paper, not in the pan. So here and there are need for light coloured branches, so I'm just going to start allowing them to be peering out through this greenery. I'm actually making them up. I'm not following the photograph that well, just vaguely. Sometimes the branches are positive in dark, they are dark, and other times they are light. So sometimes they're dark over light foliage, and other times they're light over dark foliage. So you've got to be prepared to keep changing over to positive to negative. Okay. I'm going to go in for a little bit more. Sort of a bit against doing it yellow, too yellow. So I'll just see how I go. Mixing up one of these pretty greens, putting it on and then scrubbing it off. Just going to see how that works. Because I want the sun to look like it's hitting this side, but still have some sort of detail. Pull it off in little groups. So rather than do individual leaves when they're this far away, you have to see the bunches of foliage as little round or oval groups. And the sun hits the right hand side, so you end up with a lighter patch on the right and dark on the left. That gives you fatness. This is a very big, I'd say this is what you call a river gum. I like that light blue coming through there, so some happy accidents happening. Now, I'll just try and see what a scrape does. Okay, that's good. Scraping is something that works sometimes and doesn't. You've got to get it right at the time when the paint is almost dry, but not dry. Not when you first put it down, it's usually too wet. Yeah, this is great. This is just exactly what I'm after. And even sometimes if it's too late and you can only just make a mark, it's still worth doing because it's indenting the paper, and later on you can come over with a dry brush technique and pick up those lines you've put into the paper. Yep. This is one of those trees that really spreads out. See whether I take advantage of that or not later. A couple of big branches down there. Okay, while I'm here, see how this baby goes. Yep, that's ready for a scrape. I'm just using my fingernails. You can use a credit card or a loyalty card, makes a really good scratch. Yeah, I might just take that right down there and see what happens. Texture in. But back in these trees too, everything's got texture requiring to be added. Don't want to go all over, you've got to leave some areas. That's good. The top here, just see what I'm doing here. Sometimes I can't tell if something's going to work like this until I actually do it. So it's a bit of a guessing game. Yeah, I might have left it too late on those areas. I'll just see. Now that's dry. Oh, that's quite dry, which is kind of good in a way because I can come back over it. Been waiting for that to happen. Right. Now, just down the bottom here with these, you can see I've left a few straight lines here. Just going to scrub those off. Put a little bit of water on them using this soft, just to loosen them up a little bit. I don't necessarily want any seriously straight lines, except for there's a couple of poles here, but they can be added later. So by scrubbing these out, or I'll come back to a nylon brush for scrubbing, much easier. By scrubbing this area out here, you do end up with some interesting looking plants. You're lightening it, So you do two things. You lighten it so it's easier to work on later. You can put darker colours over it. But you also, by taking out that darkness, you're left with a lovely speckledy texture. Tree has to have a trunk. It's a little bit more obvious than that. I've got that line going down the middle. I'll take that out. Okay. Now some purists will say don't do this, and if you're actually working on not good quality paper, the paper will start to peel, so you've got to be careful. Add that. I'll come back to that later. Happy for those textures and dirtiness to be there, because I want to come back and throw in some really dark shades. So across the top here I'm going to go into blue and take advantage of blue with a touch of brown in it, so that it becomes a kind of a neutral grey. Now I'm just going to put texture up here to make it look like there's trees growing on the horizon of the, it's not really horizon, of the ridge, that mountain. I'm going to put some lines in, just thin lines. There's trees up there, and while I'm at it I'll just see how I go touching in there a few branches and trunks. So just zigzagging, I'm just fiddling around with the brush, holding it flat so that it conforms to the edge of the hill, and then going right up into the sky to make some shapes up there. And that can be tree branches and lumps of foliage. Add a few different touches of colour here and there into that wetness that you've just put on, and that will just a little bit more blue too. That will run around and cause interesting shapes, interesting patterns to happen, and later on your eye will make sense of it. Your eye will say, oh yeah, that's a tree. Now, here it's a little bit difficult. I've got some white trunks that I'd like to reverse paint in and see if that works, just to help with that feeling of a tree sitting there on that ground. Without going too detailed, I'll get a tiny bit of bluey purple colour on my brush. Oops, that wasn't purple at all. Okay, I like purple for shadows. Just run it behind those two trees I've just put in there. And while I've got that purple, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful thing to put on the edge. Don't make it a straight edge, make it a rough edge. Now, while I've got that, and I'm going to go with the purple, a little bit more of the, I think I've got a bit of a funny angle there, but I'll make up some shapes here. There is a building here, I'd love to put that in, and all it is a couple of rectangles on this side. Got a fence going up, it's a bit probably detail you don't need. Add some more dark into that area. In fact, I might just pat that around a little bit and make it look like it's all the way down there. And I'm not putting a straight line, I'm pressing on my brush. Same here, oops, purple. So keep in mind when you do this, make sure your light area is the most important. So half close your eyes and just see that you're reverse painting and that what you're leaving behind untouched is more important than what you're painting in. Now I've turned that a little bit from the diagram, from the original photograph, which was shown coming straight down the hill. I've actually given that a bit of a twist around, as if I've moved further down the hill myself. So very faint lines up there, and once again, in this case I won't, because this is further away, I'll just do a couple of strokes on this one. Looser. When it's not important, you can do it much looser. And that said, what I can do there also is run down a little bit of a wet brush, half suck that out to give it a certain looseness, even join it together at the base. Run it down there. That looks good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. While I've got that purple in mind, I'll bring some around here and define the top of this lighter bush in the front. That thing there, whatever tree that is, has got a certain amount of shadow behind it, so I'll pop that in. Blue, a little bit of blue in the green too, because it's got coolness. I'll take it right to the edge. Sometimes it's important, I tend to neglect my edges, and I always regret it later if I'm coming to frame the work that I didn't take it right to the edge, because it doesn't always look good when you've got white patches. So for that reason, while I'm thinking of it, I'll just work on edges. And of course this is where if you've actually put a tape around the outside, it makes it easier. I'm going to add a bit more purple up there. I like the idea that's in shadow. Something's, in this case I've got branches there, but I don't think I'll put them. Just going to darken that off. Okay. I think I have to approach the elephant in the room, which is the bridge. Make sure I define where this tree shape is with a bit of purple backgrounding, reverse painting. It's making the tree into the ground a bit. Now this bridge in front, I'm going to mix up a sort of a blondie, brownie, yellowy, neutral, add a bit of blue to it to knock that back. So a warm, yeah, I guess, okay, you call that a warm grey. Just check to see what's wet around. Whatever's wet around is going to run, so I've got to make sure I'm going to be leaving a certain amount of dry area beside it. So just dragging that across like that. It is actually not a straight, I'm not square onto the bridge, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of indicating a slight angle. Trying not to be too precious about it, because I don't want it to look different to the rest. I want it to melt into the painting that's behind it. So I'll just, using this wedge, I'm going to just give a hint of the brickwork and the structure. Very impressionistic. Now there's a big tree in the middle there, so because I tend to paint what's there. Some people would say don't put it in, just leave it out, but I tend to sort of, as a plein air painter, you tend to take every challenge that comes, and if something's there, you paint it. You paint realism. Otherwise you end up with twee little scenes that don't quite look right. So you can see I've just sort of put in a few colours there, variety of reds and whatever, blues, greens, browns. neutral bunch of colours. Now, what I'll do now is I'll do the foliage in the front. I'll come back to that in a minute because I want to remove brick shapes. Around the side here, I'm just going to imagine what's there. I don't think it's on the photograph at all, so I'll just put in a little bit of a twisted shape there. And I've gone to the bigger brush, by the way. I'm going to put dark in this side too because it's in the shadow. Just to start with, where the sun is. Looks like some interesting ridge shapes there. Later on I'll be putting that dark curve under there, which really is quite a feature. Now, blue and brown together to put the basis of this front. Oh yes, there's something else I have to consider, is there's going to be quite a shadow underneath there from when I do put that dark edge in, so I'll put that in here. There's the reflection of the bridge going across like that. I'll put that back in brown, orangey brown colour. And more over here. Totally, as you can see, I'm just stabbing at colours in my palette. None of them accurate. But much warmer down here than cooler at the back. I'm going to go to a large brush now. The reason why, I don't want it to tighten up. I'm beginning to tighten up a little bit and worry about detail. I do not want that to happen, so I'm going to put in that tree that's growing in the middle there. I've got some light green on my brush now, and I'll just dab it around in some vertical areas. Oop, this pad block has to sit at the front here for me to get this bottom part right. And then a bit more over here. Once you do that colour, you have to come back with a slightly different colour. So I'll go for the browns, put them in amongst it. Now, just for fun, I can just get my clean. Start by lifting that out. This is one way of getting, or another way of getting texture. You can rub out or you can lift out. Just keep turning that over and putting it in. Some beautiful textures happening. Get rid of both of those. Let that dry for a second. Okay, it's dry, quite dry. You can tell it's dry because it's warmer. And when it's wet, it's cold. Dry enough. So I've got some interesting textures here from lifting out there, and I will now go over it with another layer and darken some areas with dark green and reddy browns, warm browns and greens, and then to knock it back, throw some blues in there. Look at that, beautiful, sort of like a dark khaki colour. So just see where I need to put that. But to tell you the truth, I'm going to leave that on the brush, and I'm going to use that colour maybe with a bit more. Make it stronger. Here I'm going to put in that reflection and shadow under the bridge of its archway and the reflection in the water coming up. It almost makes a circle. So same here. Go for it. A bit fatter than, not as fat as, I don't know, it's very fat in the photograph on that side. There's a line going through there that is the bottom of the structure where it hits the water, so I'll just emphasise that while I've got dark on my brush. There's going to be some interesting lines coming across the bridge. And I'll just give a hint of those. I'm not going to be too literal about them, because I'm going to come back later and just blur them in. There's two ridges here, but that said, they're not very easy, and that's not quite right, but this goes to show you can just give a hint of things, and if it's not right, it doesn't matter. Think of Van Gogh. How accurate was he? Now, when I'm back to my beautiful colour that I had ready to put in here, so I just wanted to get that organised before. Some of these areas are needing horizontal lines like this. Making sure you can see okay, yep. Then you darken, pull up. Same over here. In front here, softer. I might add a bit of warmth to this slot in the front. So I like to make it warmer as I come forward. And also some of these reeds have got some interesting buds on them, or seeds, something. The light's catching. Don't do that. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to wet my brush. Actually, I'll take this smaller one. See if I can just take out a little bit of the top edge of this bridge. This is where you get a chance to straighten it up if you think you've got it crooked. In which case I think I might have not gone high enough on this side. So I have a wet brush, but I keep having to wipe it off so the colour doesn't stay on the paper. I'm trying to lift the colour off the paper. So that's how you would repair a piece of structure that you think might be wrong. Just run the brush along, pick that up. I think that helps. Okay, so just going to smooth out some other areas where I don't want too much detail. Take that up. Down the front one of these. Just going to pretend those two columns there are much closer. I haven't got that tree in the front yet. I'm having second thoughts about putting it bang smack in the middle. As much as I said before, you've got to do exactly what you see. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you know it's going to spoil your painting. Come down a bit higher on that. These bricks in here, you can put a hint of, I've got the wrong size brush. If you're going to put bricks, you need a brush that is just going to be the size of the brick. So that's a little bit too dark. I'll go lighter. Just a hint that that's got that pattern brick around the archway. Oops. Brush is separating up there. Now you don't have to do it all the way around. Do it a part of the way around. Smudge it in the rest. just a hint, just a little bit of here and there. Same with those slightly red bricks. I'm putting a bit of orange on my brush. I'm just going to give it a hint across there that there's half closed eyes, there's sandstone involved. Now back to green in the front. Dry brush, scratching over the top of those other colours. That helps. This has got a roadway coming down. My dog needs attention. Just going to run a tiny bit of an edge through that, over that other side like that. Bring it round. Just don't like the feel that it's all water going all the way through when obviously it isn't. So I'll just smear that greenery there, and I'll just put the edge of blue, make it run upwards, and then a slightly bigger brush. What have I got here? Grab one of these smaller mops. Just run the water across underneath the blue to bring it back down into the glow of the water. Okay. Not quite sure that I've established the tree over here that well. So at this stage I start looking for problems and start thinking, how am I going to fix them? I'm going to scrub out a bit more of that trunk and make it thicker, if I can. And to tell you the truth, some of the colours you use are staining colours and you just cannot pick them out like this. And I have a feeling that purple that I used is a stainer. Although, let's see if I can get it up there. Oh, there you go, it comes up there. So something's mixed in with that that's not letting me scrape back. I'll just go over some of these areas, blending them all in. Don't need to have bright white lights there. In fact, in the painting it's very, very dark, so how about we go very, very dark ourselves? When I say in the painting, in the photograph. Put in some nice dark areas. So I've always got to be careful you don't overdo it. It's very dark at the top there, shouldn't be there, but I can't help it. You need to come in behind this tree here too with a bit of almost black. It's not in the photograph, but it's what I want to put in to define some more branches. Sometimes if it's all too soft all over, you need to give some sharp areas. Now, I did have a chance to sharpen up the bridge, but not sure. How about some reeds? Oops, pick that up again. Shadows here, shadows there. This area is a total mystery to me. I can't work out what's happening over there. I think there's a park with that trees in that park, and there's some bushes there. So I'll put the shadow side of it in first, and then the road comes sort of down. So when you can't work out from a photograph, you're just going to have to fudge it like this. Throw in a few coloured broad brushes, and then you can fake it. Right. A couple of things I want to do here. I just want to add more blue to the whole side of this tree without totally. I'm going to add blue and brown together. I might put in a new thing there to see how it looks. Yeah, it's a kind of a neutral, a bluey, a dark grey. So I'm going to build this tree with some interesting shapes to bring attention to it. Join it in with those ones behind there. Take it right over that side. I do need to come right down on top of that bridge to define that. This is where I like the paint to be very thick at this stage. Yeah, I might just run that across in front of that tree and see what happens. So I don't want that tree to look like it grows out of the bridge. So these are graphic lines that are not really realistic because of the size of this brush. But because it's, I mean, I'm not doing an abstract, it's still a painting. Now, just going to darken in some of this area here to define the tree. Otherwise the tree is going to look like, I'll wet the brush a bit. Don't let it run down the page. Come over here. And then I have to choose which areas here to darken, but once again I want to have that dark on light, dark on light. Just going to add a little bit of road detail here to make it look like there's something happening on this corner. I've taken the page off the block. Just add a bit of darkness into that to make it run around, run into the water. I'm probably going to leave it at that. So that's the end result. Now I promised you I'd show you the earlier one, the one I didn't like. And I have to confess it's not much different.
Did you ever stop and think, why spend too much time just getting ready? Let me be honest, I don't know a single thing that I haven't done to make you notice me. Let me be real here. When I see you, my heart starts racing, but I don't know if I like this chasing and playing and waiting around. It's a shame that my hands start shaking all of the time.